like one of the reasons for her leaving or wanting a divorce was because she had to act more like a mother to him and get him out of his like depressive tendencies or something like that. And I don't know the truth. Look, at the end of the day, I don't give a shit. One of the things about divorce that people don't understand, your life literally gets opened up, and your finances, your personal life, your family life, all that shit is kind of out there, and you have to talk about it. It's like a really fucked up form of therapy per se.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Only Lawsuits podcast. My name is Joshua Moby-John. I am the marketing director at Kraken Law Group, and I'm here with
Michael Singh, the owner of Kraken Law Group.
Mike and I. We've been friends for over 20 years, and one thing that we've talked about doing as of recently is a podcast focused in on some of the lawsuits going on around the country.
Yeah, and different things in pop culture that, pop up. One of the things that law does, it impacts every aspect of our life. So I think it's something people definitely have to deal with every day. And I think it's, some stuff we can poke fun at and have some fun with.
All right, Mike. So drum roll. What's the first case that we're talking about today?
I was actually on Instagram this morning, man. And I don't know if you saw the thing I sent you where it says, the Supreme Court refuses to revive Biden's latest student loan debt relief plan.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I read about it.
So, what are your thoughts on student loan and debt relief? Like, because the reason I asked that is, look, we have two totally different, life viewpoints, or not life viewpoints, but I guess career points when it comes to student loan debt, right? I got a shit ton of student loan debt, and I don't think you probably have nearly as much as I do.
Well, I actually ended up paying all of mine off, but you are right. We are on different spectrums. Like, I was a college dropout, originally a nursing major before transitioning into the entertainment industry. And I know Mike has a lot of law debt or a lot of debt incurred from going to law school.
Oh, yeah.
So, my perspective on it, man, is look, I paid off all my debt. I do believe in some sort of debt relief. I think college expenses over the course of like the last 3 or 4 decades have become very exorbitant. But under the same token, somebody going in for some bullshit degree, that really serves no purpose. Do I really think that their student loan debt should be forgiven? Not really. Because we both read stories about people using the money to travel Europe.
Well, look, and
pay
that,
their bills.
The way I feel is, look, I think I went to school, I racked up a ton of debt to get my law degree and become a lawyer. And look, it's paid off for me. Like, yeah, I have a ton of debt, but I also make decent money. I'm not struggling by no means. And I think I should have to pay that money back. The only thing that I think is, the concept of the interest on it. I think, I don't think people should get the money for free. But I think some of the interest rates that are being charged, I think that's kind of what really holds people back.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Because like interest, not many people understand that. And like, I'll use an example. When I was like 18, man, got my first credit card. I didn't know shit about interest. I didn't know shit about, credit cards. I didn't know shit about debt. Part of the reasons why is because they don't teach you about that in school. I guess we can premise this whole thing as we should start enforcing that sort of education in school so people don't get into crazy debt and they understand what the hell they're doing. Because Lord knows, man, when we were younger, when we were turning 18, I feel like we were a little bit more in tuned with, books and reading and,
but I think you and I had a more intimate concept with money because from a very young age, we were entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people, and I don't want to say that most people aren't, but I think like, based off of the type of stuff that, we used to do growing up to make money, we had a very, very good concept of where the money is coming in and how it's going out.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, look, we had a little bit more of an entrepreneurial spirit, when we were younger. But the problem is, like, even with that spirit, I didn't know shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'll say that right now, even to today, like, yeah, I run a law firm, I own a law firm, and I do well, but I still have to figure out a lot. And I think the youth of today, they don't understand 90% of what the hell's going on. Most of them get their knowledge from TikTok. So, and that's what I was getting to is I think we need to really get it to where like interest rates that kids are being charged, I think that needs to be adjusted more than anything.
I actually agree with that. I think that, number one, of course, like financial education is very, very important. Especially amongst the younger generation, having some sort of concept about where the money is coming from. But two, interest rates are almost predatory with a lot of these lenders, and you don't realize how much you owe until years down the line when you have a lot of these people paying off their student loans. They realize that they have had no impact on what is ultimately like the end balance sheet. So that's why like you have people who are paying into it for like 15 years. And they still owe sometimes just as much as they did when they left school because a lot of that is going toward the interest.
Yeah. And, speaking of interest, man, a lot of people don't realize like one thing that we deal with, in practice is we get a lot of people that either don't pay their credit cards or they default on loans and then they get judgments held against them, and they don't understand the concept of like, yeah, you default on a $3,000-$4,000 credit card, and then that judgment accrues a certain amount of interest, throughout its lifespan, which in Florida, it's, I think, roughly like 20 years. So people don't understand if you don't like understand the concept of interest will creep up on you and like decimate you, because no matter how much you pay, you're never going to get that debt paid off.
Yeah.
So I think that's something when it comes to the student loans. I think if we start with interest and, you got to take everything into consideration. By no means am I like political expert that knows anything about how politics and all this stuff interplay. I really don't give a shit about any of that. But, in theory, I think if we were to start somewhere, we start working on the interest rates, hopefully that could help people get out of debt so we don't deal with this shit much longer,
Yeah. No, I mean, well said.
What's something you've paid attention to lately? Social media or something that's caught your eye
in regards to like something law related?
Yeah, law related. Like what? Because like obviously I like pay attention to all sorts of weird shit because I'm a lawyer. But I think it's an interesting perspective, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to. I like the concept of you and I doing this. Because, as a lawyer, I pay attention to law-based things, and, I think it's different. What do you, as a non-lawyer, pay attention to?
I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean, my feed is more so inundated with more creative-oriented stuff. But as of late, of course, with the election cycle in full swing, I've had a lot of stuff coming across my feed, whether that's like on news, whether that's on Google or Instagram with like political ads and what's going on, during this cycle. So I think recently, I mean, like the biggest article that I read, I mean, this is yesterday, is Trump getting charged again with, them bringing up another charge against him.
Yeah, wasn't it like the court dismissed, I believe it was like something like the court dismissed it was the records, the mishandling of classified information.
Yeah.
I saw that too, man. And I think this is just so, without trying to lean either way, right? Like I really don't, understand the distraction. I don't understand, like, look, I get it. Everyone wants to go after Trump. Trump wants to go after Biden and like,
or now Harris.
But like the way I see it is both Biden and Trump did the same shit. Biden put these fucking documents in a goddamn box next to his Corvette in the middle of his, garage. And Trump had these documents somewhere in Mar-a-Lago or wherever the hell it was. At the base of it, it was the same shit.
Yeah.
And if you look at it like, okay, so you compare them apples to apples per se, the facts seemingly, and this is me not reviewing the facts entirely, but from what I understand and what was put out there in the media, is they both had classified documents. They both had them kind of in a situation where they weren't super secured. And both are purportedly violating federal law. Well, treat them both the same, right? Look, Biden's case essentially got thrown out. Why? I believe I remember, if I recall correctly, they literally said like he's, old, incompetent, whatever it is. And Trump's, I don't even know what they said when they dismissed his, but I feel like this whole revival and push to go after it is just a political play. And if anything, it's like, it's motivating Trump's base to just support him more. And like, I tend to be a little bit more down the middle. The one thing that kind of gets under my skin is when like one party takes an advantage of the other party. It's literally like my litigation, and even in my like line of work, man, if I see an attorney is taking advantage of a unrepresented party or is trying to beat up on my client, that shit pisses me off. So like, I feel like in this situation, not that Trump's my client or anything, but I feel like people should just get the same level of treatment in the courts. And cause that's where you go to balance the scales of justice. Right.
I mean, I agree. I think that's really, really well said. I think as a general public, what you want from, your local government and your federal government is like accountability of what's going on. And I'm not saying that Trump is wrong or right with the classified documents, but it's also what you call public perception, right? They can dismiss the case against Biden because they quote unquote deem him senile, but because Trump is seen as some sort of demagogue, they think that he's doing, all of these evil things. And like, it just circles back to, I remember the 2016 election between Hillary and Trump. And she had that entire controversy around having private email servers, which is like the same thing, right? But the media chose not to focus in on that narrative. So, Mike and I were like very down the middle, moderate political people. So, we just take the news as it is. And I think, when you do see stuff like this coming, across the news, and it's more politically driven than anything, it's easy to see why people have a hard time getting a more partisan opinion of what's going on.
It's crazy. The one thing that I will say being a lawyer has created in me is like trust issues, right? Like, I don't trust anything anyone says ever because, I'm trained. Like, if it's not written on a piece of paper, like, that shit isn't real. And like, I don't trust politicians at all. Number one, because even when they write shit on paper, they forget it.
Yeah.
You look at the voting records for some politicians on both sides. Literally, man, they will literally 20 years ago say, yeah, we want to, arrest certain minorities or treat certain people as criminals or prosecute certain things certain ways. But then like today when they're running for office, oh yeah, let's defund the police and let's let these people out.
So to touch upon what you're saying, Kamala Harris actually had an interview in the last few days with CNN, I guess her first interview in a while. And she actually did great. I mean, it was like, like I said, being somebody who tries to be very partisan and looking at the interview for what it was, I thought it was a great interview for her, although it was pre-recorded, right?
Yeah.
But she said something to drive your point home that just goes to show you that politicians are just willing to do anything. She says that, oh, my values have stayed the same, although my stances have kind of changed.
Wasn't she?
To me, that just means that, hey, you know what? I'm willing to do and say anything that is going to get me elected. And that's not just on her, right? That's like every politician across, both parties.
Bro, so I did, my major at UCF, which was poli-sci, right? Poli-sci with the pre-law track. And bro, I took one like political course, and like the one thing I will remember from that course is exactly kind of what you said. I summed it up in my head, and the way I remembered it is basically politicians will say whatever the hell they want to get elected.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest bullshit.
It is, man.
I think it's the biggest bullshit. And, like, look, when I go in front of a judge, like we have certain ethical guidelines that we got to deal with to make sure we don't say bullshit. We have to say facts. We have to like tell the truth. The fact that, in the courts where we are making decisions about people's lives, essentially, we can't lie, but the politicians that literally make decisions for our fucking country can lie is so beyond me. It's so beyond me. I can't even like understand why people let this shit go.
You and I talk about it. It's just corporate interest, man. I think a lot of people are aware of it, and like, a lot of people know what's going on behind the scenes, but it's a major reason why, like, a lot of like these congressmen, a lot of like these senators, once they're elected into office, they're there for multiple decades.
Yeah.
And the only reason being is because, corporate interest is driving their campaigns.
Well, what's crazy is, right? So like, one of the things that's really impact us in the, like law firms in Florida, especially plaintiffs firms like us, we do plaintiffs and defense work. We kind of jump on both sides of the V. But one of the big things that really impact us was the tort reform laws, a year or so ago. And basically that law, if you read it, it literally, it's like the insurance companies wrote it themselves and handed it to the legislators, and the legislators just, signed away and sent it up to DeSantis, which signed it away. And look, like, the way they try to frame it is we as plaintiffs lawyers are, we're the bad guys. We're the ones that are demanding all this money and driving up insurance rates. Bro, that's the biggest bullshit I've ever like heard in my life. You want to know why? Because insurance companies, in my eyes, are literally, it's legalized monopoly, man. Because at the end of the day, we have the state government that says we have to have car insurance, right? And if we don't have car insurance, what happens? We lose our license, or we can't register a vehicle, so on and so forth. And look, I think car insurance is important, especially in my areas of practice. Without car insurance, shit, I wouldn't have a law firm. But one of the big things I like to point out is the reason why insurance rates go up is not because of us, not because of us plaintiffs lawyers filing like lawsuits and suing these people. It's the insurance companies not wanting to pay us, forcing us to go all the way to trial. And then they get hit with these big verdicts. And, you have really big firms that put these big verdicts on billboards. And the only reason they got that verdict is because you didn't settle fairly. Like, listen, if someone is injured in an accident, settle the damn claim. Like, don't make us waste our time. And with this new law, right? The new law, we have to, have these whole good faith dealings with the insurance companies. Like, but they can basically tell us to go fuck ourselves when it comes to paying what we feel is a fair value for the case.
But you know what? It's great that you say that, because your definition of good faith is going to be way different than their definition of good faith.
Yeah.
Because their definition of good faith is always going to be along the lines of how little can I pay this client in order for them.
There was literally I think Allstate, I forgot what it was. I knew it a lot more a few years ago or a year ago when this law was kind of ripe or brand new. But Allstate literally paid to or one of the insurance company, I forgot who it was. They paid to have a study done and by this private company, and the private company's findings literally came back, and it was something like, just deny everything. I'm summarizing very loosely, but they basically said deny all claims, and you end up saving X amount of dollars because only a certain amount of people are going to go get lawyers and fight you. And that's literally what we deal with, right? We have people that are worried about, filing a claim on their insurance. They're worried about, their insurance rates going up. And a lot of it is like people don't really understand, look, you pay for this shit. You pay for a contract with these insurance companies. So if you're going to go after money that's you're legally entitled to, go for it. What's stopping you? So, I have to, that's a common misconception of thing I got to always battle with new clients, but it is what it is.
It is pretty crazy though, man, to see how much insurance companies do get away with. I mean, that was a recent piece of news that I read where housing insurance rates across California are going to go through the roof. It just got approved, where insurance companies can raise rates by upwards of 34, 36% on house owners based off of forest fires. But one of the big things that I always say is that they come up with reasons on why they need to raise prices, and this is just across the board with any company. But when nothing does happen and everything goes back to a sense of normalcy, they keep the rates just they keep those raised rates where they were. So that's not just insurance companies, that from my perception, from my perspective, that's gas prices, right? That's food costs at the grocery store, right? They blame the pandemic. Once everything goes back to normal, they still keep those prices high. Yeah. Because they know as a consumer, you really don't have a choice. You have to pay it. So, no accountability. No, there's no accountability amongst some of these corporate interests. But something a little bit more lighthearted that we're about to get into.
Just take a break for our sponsors. To address our sponsor, Kraken Law Group. We handle auto accident claims. We handle property owner defense claims. If you're being sued by someone, you own a property, and your insurance company denies you coverage, call Kraken Law Group. We can help you.
This guy just saved a homeowner or a landowner $15 million. So
I saved a client $15 million by switching to Kraken Law Group.
There you go. But to end it, why don't we discuss something a little bit more lighthearted? The J-Lo divorce that's taken over J-Lo. All of our news headlines. So
I thought about that shit this morning, dude. So how crazy do you think it would be if Tom Brady and J-Lo got engaged, and the reason Tom Brady did it was to prevent her from getting the same amount of rings as he did? Dude, if they were to collaborate and put J-Lo's engagement rings and his Super Bowl rings together, fucking one of the most viral posts of 2024.
That's the new power couple, man. J-Lo and Tom Brady.
Freshly divorced, single, ready to mingle. I think isn't J-Lo in Miami?
I don't really care where J-Lo is. But and dude, no offense to you, J-Lo. I just don't. I'm not big into pop culture like that. You know,
Why
I
in
did
the
used to have a
world?
big crush on.
Listen, man, like you think about it from this perspective. I think any sports fan knew J-Lo and Ben Affleck were doomed from the beginning. Affleck's from Boston, J-Lo's from New York. That's like expecting, you know, the Patriots and the Jets to just be the fucking best friends. And
I mean, look, the broader stroke is that it is a relationship built by media narratives, right? Like they were together, you know, I guess like in the early 2000s when we were kids or something like that. And then they find love like a lot later in life. Like, you know, like just from somebody that doesn't really know about like everything going on and doesn't really read like the tabloids. When you do see photos of them, or if I've ever seen photos of them, it's not like he looked like the happiest camper.
no, but so that's one thing I looked at. I saw a video earlier today, and they were talking about how like J-Lo supposedly, like one of the reasons for her leaving or wanting a divorce was because she had to act more like a mother to him and get him out of his like depressive tendencies or something like that. And I don't know the truth. Look, at the end of the day, I don't give a shit about these people's lives, but the only reason I like even paid attention to it because it's a divorce, right? And like we handle divorces, and I think divorce cases are interesting. I don't make the most money off of them when you compare like time investment to how much we bill on them. But I think what makes them interesting is they're very, very manipulatable. And the reason I say that is it's all emotion, man. Like one of the things that I do when I litigate cases is try to get under the skin of either opposing counsel or the defendants. And, you know, I'm not trying to intentionally like abuse people or like, you know, be an asshole. But look, we're guided by certain rules of civil procedure. And based on those rules, I navigate the pathways to like get my way. And the cool thing about divorces is like people don't realize it, but you sit someone down for a deposition for their divorce, man, and like you literally can ask them about anything that's relevant to the divorce. What's relevant to a divorce, man? Think about it. You can ask about sex life. You can ask about, you know, infidelity. You can ask about all the juicy things. You can literally ask about all their emotional aspects of their life. So think about how like if you're going to go through a divorce, man, like if someone's going to sit you down, especially like a stranger that's getting paid to basically push into all the private details of your life, that's kind of fucking scary, man. And I think that's like one of the things about divorce that people don't understand. Your life literally gets opened up, and your finances, your personal life, your family life, all that shit is kind of out there, and you have to talk about it. It's like a really fucked up form of therapy per se, but it's going to result in you ending your marriage.
But, you know, now amplify that with two people who are so in the public eye, and now you're also under the public microscope, right? Because now it's a battle of PR agencies pushing, you know, different narratives and stuff like that. That actually leads into a pretty good question. So from your experience handling all of the divorce cases that you have, do you find it more complicated to handle cases that are divorce cases where the couple has been married for a longer period of time or a shorter period of time? Like what? So like when you've handled divorce cases for say couples who have been married more than 10 years versus like a couple that might have only been married for like 2 years, what are some of the differences that you've had to deal with?
Honestly, that's the craziest part, man. It's not predictable because the problem is it's all based off of the people, right? I've been involved in cases where you have like extremely toxic people and they just want to nitpick and just beat each other up as much as possible. Or you have people that literally have been married for 20 years and they actually just like kind of live their own lives and just kind of, you know, just want to sign papers and get this thing done with. So it's like, it's weird, man. Like and that's what I think makes divorces such an interesting form of law. That's one of the reasons why I like practicing them, is because it's very like case specific, man. There's no like template for a divorce per se. It's really like, how are these people going to interact with one another? And like, how can we facilitate this breakup and deal with these people's interactions? Like there's crazy cases out there, man. There's some crazy people. Did you see that? There was I watch some of the crime channels on YouTube sometime, and dude, there's cases. I saw one case where this girl married this guy, and I can't remember the name, but literally, like she literally plotted his assassination and stupidly like got her assassin off of like fucking Google or some shit. She's so dumb. But essentially she like hired an FBI agent, and then like the FBI agent went and told the guy like, yo, this lady's wants to kill you. I need you to like act like you've been killed. And I think they got ketchup and like made him take it was so fucked up. They made him take a photo with like ketchup and his like laying down on the ground. And like, there's videos of before she hired the guy, the FBI agent was like in the car and was like, oh yeah, how do you want me to do it? And she was like, oh, I want fucking video proof or photo proof. So like they make this guy do this photo, and like, keep in mind, they go along with this whole thing, dude. So they go take the photo. She's like out at the gym or some shit. She comes back. The cops are everywhere. There's crime scene investigation. And she goes and they like make up this whole story like, oh, someone broke into your house and killed him. And, we're going to take you down to the station so we can ask you some questions. So literally, dude, they like lead her on. And like, then they're like, yeah, we just want you to know the guy you hired was an FBI agent. And bro, she's like, he's alive? Oh my God. And she like stayed in character, but it was the funniest shit. Like,
you know what I've realized watching a lot of like those true crime documentaries, especially with like these, especially with the ones pertaining to partners wanting to kill each other, is that a lot of it comes down to finances being so intertwined, and one of the partners feeling like they really can't separate themselves, right? Completely without getting rid of their, their so-called like significant other. And that's where, then that's why the more, and from my perspective, like, from what I've seen, like the more tied in they are with like mortgage payments, bills, right? Like, cause a lot of couples nowadays, sometimes like they stay together just based off of like financial considerations.
Well, I think in the like current day, dude, you got to think about it, man. Like minimum wage is not enough to support people going and have to fill out an application for an apartment that requires you to make like 3 times the rent.
Sometimes 5 times. Yeah.
Yeah. The rent's $3,000 a month, bro. Like there's months that I know lawyers that don't make, $6,000-$7,000 a month. So it's like, it's crazy. Like people are forced to live together and be in these like toxic situations, and, people that really should be divorced, are in these situations where they have to because of convenience.
Yeah.
And but it all boils down to it. It goes back to like where we first started, man, politicians and how the people the highest up make decisions for the people at the bottom. And it just really kind of screws us up. With that being said, man, it was a good first episode.
That was a great first episode, man. If you like what you see and you have any questions and you've tuned in, leave that question in the comments below. We're going to be doing this every week, covering cases and, some pop culture topics. So the Only Lawsuits podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Mike. Go to www.onlylawsuits.com.
Onlylawsuits.com.
It'll lead you to Kraken Law Group because you need a lawyer like us. what do we do?
You need a lawyer like him.
Or yeah, like me, because I'm the only lawyer.
Yeah.
But we crack cases, we crack bank accounts for the insurance company, and that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll always have access to him. So thank you again for tuning in, and until next time.
Peace.